Howdy y'all, welcome back, thank you for being here. To finish our three-peat of videos regarding the mysterious nature of France in the 19th century, we will turn our attention to the broader architecture of the country, with our particular focus being on Paris. These images will be dated to before the year 1900, so all the 19th century, by the esteemed artist Charles Marville. And to accompany our deep dive into some of the finest photographs we have of the Old World, we will also focus on some of the more interesting, outlandish, and monumental theories regarding Paris. Much of our discussion today will be fuel for thought, meant to heighten your experience as you view these incredible photographs, but just remember to take everything that we talk about with a grain of salt, as many of the theories we discuss today have been, at least partially, discredited by the mainstream academia. Yet, in that tossing away of the ancient beliefs, we can see just how stubborn our current his story truly is, leaving very little room for the aspects of the ancient narrative that simply don't add up. Today, we will view over 90 photographs of France, with our focus on Paris, all taken during the 19th century. We will do this while entertaining some of the more deep-rooted theories regarding the Parisian underground and its lost history. Let's get right into it. We would not be doing Paris justice without mentioning the Paris Catacombs. As I've made a video about the catacombs before, where we looked at some of the very somber and creepy photographs, we can basically see a meticulously built masterpiece of architecture, quite literally formed from over 6 million of Paris's former residents. These catacombs, or tunnels beneath Paris, run for over 200 miles. However, according to the mainstream narrative, these systems did not begin as ossuaries, but were instead ancient Roman quarries. Per usual, all roads, and in this case tunnels, lead back to Rome, at least in this current narrative. Essentially, we're told Paris quickly after its foundation became the site of one of the largest quarry systems used by the Romans. These elaborate limestone quarries are said to have provided the material for some of the greatest structures in the Old World. Initially begun in the 1st century BC, these quarries grew rapidly until they interconnected beneath most of what would become the city of Paris. However, these quarry tunnels were also said to be unregulated and unmapped, which is somewhat remarkable given the high Roman standards that most Roman strongholds were held to. We are also told that a majority of these tunnels remained unknown even after Paris was fully developed, which led to weakened infrastructure and numerous collapses where entire streets were swallowed in the 18th century. Again, the timing of all of this that occurred is quite impeccable. Just a few years before the French Revolution, we're told, Paris was deeply in the midst of an epidemic of poor sanitation. As we've discussed in my last video, this is partially why we were told thousands of cast iron structures like lights and toilets were then founded throughout the streets of Paris, but I digress. Another cause to the sanitation issues stem from the overcrowding of the major cemeteries of Paris. However, what really makes this hard to believe are the numbers that we are given. In 1786, the French authorities, the same authorities that would be out of power roughly 12 years later, ordered that the massive, unmapped, dangerous tunnels from Roman times be completely filled in with the bones from the overcrowded places of rest in Paris. Over 6 million remains were transferred into the limestone quarry tunnels, which thenceforth became known colloquially as the catacombs. However, nearly all of these bones appeared to be aligned in a meticulous, almost domineering way, mostly built directly into the walls in such a way to form intricate shapes, patterns, and symbols. By the time Napoleon Bonaparte had taken power in France following the revolution, he ordered the Inspector General of the Mines, a position that was created in 1777, to fully stabilize and map the entire web of tunnels. This process was said to have begun in 1809, and Napoleon was said to have visited the catacombs multiple times during this process. The reason for Napoleon's repeated visits still remains unclear to this day. Some historians propose that Napoleon was seeking alternate escape routes from certain points in Paris and planned to use the ancient tunnels as his escape tunnels. Still, others propose that Napoleon's interest in the tunnels was a much more esoteric one. Theories vary wildly, from Napoleon using the tunnels to hide his spoils of war, especially those he had taken from Egypt, to him having been informed by certain secret societies of ancient relics already contained within the tunnels, possibly dating back to the Knights Templar. Others propose that Napoleon was actually initiated into certain Hermetic or Masonic orders within the confines of the catacombs, but again, we have very little to support this in the current narrative. One possible piece of evidence stems from the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, who in the late 1800s claimed that Napoleon visiting the tunnels was to gain ancient knowledge, becoming a hidden adept in a symbolic journey of ascendancy. Others claim that the catacombs were intentionally sealed by Napoleon in certain locations, which we know much of the catacombs are off limits today. But these fringe theories believe that within the catacombs is contained the greatest relics of the Knights Templar, including the Holy Grail. Still, when we look at the ancient history of Paris, the esoteric nature truly bears repeating. Many theorists now propose that Paris was for centuries home to an ancient caste of Celtic Druids, being one of the main fortifications for these master soothsayers of pre-Roman times. Some ancient quotes refer to Paris as the heart of the Druid world and allude to the tunnels being like the ventricles. We also have many stories of the early pagan history of Paris, which allude to the first churches and cathedrals of the area, including Notre Dame, being built on earthworks and entrances to the vast underground tunnel system. According to these same theorists, Druids would travel far and wide to Paris to access the energetically charged tunnels beneath the city, and these same theorists propose that this energy was created by the harnessing of ley lines, or the Earth energy grid. For this reason, we are told, these theorists believe that Rome was in the business of conquering these most sacred sites with esoteric connections, and this is why Paris was almost immediately turned into a quarry, in this theory, to remove or reshape the charged energy of the underground landscape. According to the mainstream narrative, and let me be clear, this is just the mainstream narrative, but there is apparently no evidence that any form of Druid culture used, founded, or created the Paris tunnels. Every single piece of modern literature says the tunnels were created by the Romans. Make of that what you will. According to historian and occultist Joris Karl Huysmans, the Paris catacombs were, from their creation as an ossuary in the late 1700s, used for occult practices and black magic, including the initiation rites for some of the most detrimental secret societies in history. Extrapolating on this further, we have the writings of Eliphas Levi, considered by many to be France's most influential occultist of the 19th century, who wrote that Napoleon's entire rise and fall was predicted through prophecies that were apparently well known in esoteric circles. But he also writes that having knowledge gained through magic or esoteric practices led to much strain on the body. This may also be seen as a metaphor for the dangers of secret societies. Others, like Stanislaw de Guaita, proposed that the many tunnels under Paris had always been there, formed as cosmic conduits which harbored deep energetic fields, and the quarrying of the stone in this theory was only seen as a way to try to harness these frequencies. Others claim that the Parisian catacombs quite literally led to alternate lands, unmapped territories contained deep underground, while theorists like Victor Hennequin claimed that the deeper you went into these tunnels, the closer you came to the soul of Earth, suggesting it was in caves and tunnels like these that one could hear the quote, voice of God. On the complete opposite side of the spectrum would be even earlier theories like the Comte de Gabalis, published in 1670, well before the tunnels were officially catacombs, which claimed that the evil of the world resided underground, like in the tunnels below Paris. It is said that demons or jinn resided in these underground chambers, only able to come to the surface level when a mortal soul would enter the tunnels and a jinn would replace them. It was also ancient Hermetic belief that these underground spirits would enact great change once they were released, like conducting revolutions. And many tie the rise and fall of Napoleon to this sect of secret knowledge. I believe I'm going to wrap up my narrative there, but hopefully you are enjoying and will continue to enjoy these photographs and the different theories and topics that we've discussed today. If you've been with my channel for a while, or if you really enjoyed this video, if you found any of the work that I've done to be beneficial to your research in history, please consider supporting my channel. Everything that you do goes to help the channel to grow, whether it be supporting me or liking the videos, leaving comments, sharing this work to get these ideas, to get these photographs out there for a larger community. We can begin to show people that the history of the old world, really the history of all the world, our entire realm, is a lot different than the way it's been presented to us. We have concise narratives. We have narratives that always appear to wrap up everything nicely, but history itself really is much more open-ended than that. And when we look at architecture as one of the most simple ways to deduce what was going on in a society, we can see that the ancient architecture of the world is some of the most advanced that we have really in all of history. We have this lost time period, it seems like, where every major city was having these massive monumental foundations being created. And for the most part, at least in major European cities, these are always being tied back to Rome. So we're looking to peel back that history, to dive deep, in Paris, deep underground, to see what we can find below the surface. Leave any thoughts and comments you have down below. I can't wait to read your ideas, and we will talk about this more on the next video.